Thank you. Okay. So immigration policy in the US has really been engaged in a controversial national debate. It's become an emotionally charged political issue. There are many disagreements, but the migrant and immigrant children are the ones that are impacted, and they've become entangled in a political climate, a contentious controversy. And I think the proximity to the US border, the southern border, has also been a factor in all of this. But we're concerned about the children because of the social and educational inequalities. So as far as the migrant and immigrant children that are entering our schools, they are caught up in a multiplicity of challenges. Challenges are also facing educators and facing families who are coming to the United States. So if we define migrant and immigrant children, a migrant child is one who is highly mobile or has parents or guardians who are highly mobile. And this includes children of migratory agricultural workers, migratory fishers, and workers in seasonal industries or positions. Migrant students move regularly from one residence and school district to another, and that can certainly affect their access to education. Now, if we refer to an immigrant student, they are considered to be age 3 to 21. They were not born in any state, and they have not been attending one or more schools in any one or more states for more than 3 full academic years. Those are US government definitions. So I didn't just come up with them. But the challenge for educators is that they're often unprepared and overwhelmed because they may have large classes. They are expected to screen the students and figure out where they should be placed. There's a challenge for them locating the proper curriculum and materials to serve students. And also some are expected to coach other teachers at the same time. It's a challenge for families because of language integration and support, resources for survival, or to understand the expectations. So the opportunity to learn English is crucial, to have access for educational resources and navigate the school system and environment, and bridge the gaps as well. Anyone who doesn't have patience with these students, I happened to be in Thailand last year, and I thought, how would people feel if someone just let them off on a street corner in Thailand or another country, Romania, and said, good luck. So we're concerned about serving these students and doing all we can for them. Our research tells us that we need to promote optimal learning. Of course, we know that. And we know that these students are grappling with access to quality education. We look at our pedagogy and our curriculum, and it needs to focus on cultural diversity, critical issues and practices for English language learners, and an equitable learning field. So there are high expectations. These students are simultaneously exploring their own identities. Education's diverse. They have a passion for English learning. We want the learning to be student-centered. We have numerous native languages, and we want to be able to develop all that we can to assist these students. Educators are unprepared. I certainly was when I started teaching in Los Angeles, and I had very little professional development. But I think we're doing a lot better now than when I first started teaching, but I was clueless. And we endeavor, all of us as educators, to celebrate the genius of children who are becoming successful in language-rich contexts. These children don't meet the one-size-fits-all curriculum. So they need to increase their achievement, and we need to also help them promote literacy at home as well as at school. Educators, they are sincere, they're dedicated. So they strive to continue to experience a variety of changes and directly affect students in a positive way and impact their academic progress. They endeavor to align course content and student learning. They know that's critical. And sometimes the technology is lacking in areas that are important. We want to welcome our students. We want to provide equitable learning fields. We have limited resources. We have limited qualified teachers. They're not available. And there's a need for increased funding, just like everywhere else. But we do endeavor to serve the achievement needs of these students. We look at what educators are and what they are not. We aspire to provide quality education for all students, but it is not our role to become embroiled in political battles or border disputes, unless I would say we want to advocate for our students. We want to advocate for goodwill for them. But otherwise, we do not. We want to be a catalyst for the expansion of learning, not for getting engaged in big arguments. It's certainly not the children's fault. So many times I have had students, they have been homesick. They didn't make the decision to move to another country. And sometimes they aren't even living with their parents. They were sent, to live with an aunt or uncle, and they're homesick. I had students that were 14, 15 years old that were living with a relative and were expected to cook and clean and do all of these things in appreciation for the opportunity to live with this relative. And sometimes it wasn't the best situation. I had other students who were working all night long, I found out, and then coming to school exhausted and falling asleep. I remember one little boy, hands on the computer, his hands were all red and broken out with, I said, what happened to you? What's wrong with your hands? I was cleaning floors all night to earn money. And I said, but didn't they give you gloves? What, it was cleaning. No, no one. So I tried to track down where he was working and what was going on. But there are so many intervening variables that as educators, we don't know about, and then it's difficult for us to control. So many times students have a different purpose for learning English, and that impacts everything as well. Some people feel like every student should know how to read, write, speak, listen, use language effectively for workforce requirements, but that depends. Some of us are working with first or second graders, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and others of us are working with 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and it's different for everyone. There is a pressure associated with being thrust into a new setting surrounded by English on a permanent basis. I taught a summer in Japan. I knew no Japanese, so I got to learn Japanese like a child, one word at a time, and then putting words together. I was actually very happy that my host family did not speak English because I liked the total immersion situation. But the socialization is a huge, huge factor. And, we all endeavor to create an open, welcoming setting. But, when students use their home language throughout the day, that's okay. I'm guilty. Used to in my classes, the old way was to say, oh, we're only going to speak English. But now the thoughts have changed so that it's fine to use a variety of languages to learn. So everything changes. But we want to provide a positive space for the students to interact, so that it's an evolving learning experience. I'll just mention a few pieces of the review of the literature. So in the state that I come from in the United States of Idaho, and it's not a large state, there are our data here says 21,237 English learners who speak over 150 different native languages and dialects. And Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, that's from 1964, prohibits public schools from discriminating based on race, color, or national origin. So the author, a book that we often use is by an author named Christensen, emphasizing putting out the linguistic welcome mat. And it focuses on a way to cultivate a classroom environment for students of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, to celebrate all languages that are spoken at home and spoken at school. So it's interesting, the comment that's made is an environment that shows students the power of language, the power of any language. Not that there's a language of power, and some people assume that to be standard English, but that's definitely not always the case. So we talk about language shifts and, you know, the challenges with young children who lose a first language and the effect that that has on them, because we don't want them to lose that first or native language. So there are a variety of literature reviews. I can just sort of skip through them. But teachers do face a lot of stress dealing with the public perception of their profession. People don't always respect teachers, but teachers are enthusiastic. They have a willingness to meet the challenges of serving migrant and immigrant children, and that's crucial for them. They can be the greatest advocates for their profession by taking back the narrative and telling the public about the realities of their jobs. The cultural and linguistic populations of the USA, they're continually increasing in number, and we need to be aware of the globalization and how it's impacting academics, achievement, and our students. And we sincerely want to reduce the underachievement of students, not just students of color, all students, and ascertain influences and expectations about their progress. So it's becoming quite complex. There are numerous social factors as well: financial resources, family dynamics, the school district, equity still not being achieved in school textbooks. Immigrant students may be traumatized from the process of their journey and the new experience. A lot of people don't always understand the procedures or expectations. And as I mentioned before, students, they can be homesick. They can be separated from their family members. You know, it's tough. Some are living in conditions and situations of poverty. We don't know. Some of them may be hungry or malnourished. So it's a real concern. And as I mentioned before, the diverse characteristics of migrant and immigrant learners are certainly a factor. Whether they're cultural, learning styles, ages, the educational setting, there's a real difference in urban and rural settings. And, you know, they have varying ability levels when they come. So as we re-examine this, we certainly want to enable our students. We want to align our course content. We want to serve all of their achievement needs. And we want to provide language assistance to students and families. And now the English learners, now we are calling them multilingual learners. But we want to make the information accessible for parents and guardians. And there are a variety of challenges, of outcomes for educators, but it requires continued attention and sensitivity to promote our students' success. And there are definitely significant connections between relationships, culture, communication, and education. And most educators are inspired by the opportunity to serve these students and meet diverse student needs. But at the same time, they are challenged and they're concerned about limited resources and the adjustment that these students require. So there are a variety of outcomes, providing relevant professional development to educators, interaction among colleagues, wider recognition of programs, supporting and promoting, strengthening educators, and schools need to hire diverse staff, provide professional development to emphasize cultural responsiveness and support students. So overall, we want to provide the best education possible, challenging our students to high ideals, preparing educators, providing resources, and continuing our passion for educational excellence. So to conclude with some recommendations, we know that it's essential to pursue continuous improvement, to mainstream multilingualism, to strengthen equity. Culturally responsive teaching is essential. Effective communication, interactions, family engagement, professional development. And we want our dedicated educators to be recognized for their efforts and their commitment to enthusiastically serving migrant and immigrant students. And we want to continue creative and effective strategies that are flexible and meet the challenges experienced by migrant and immigrant students. Thank you.